I consume mass quantities of coffee. You know, it's part of what I do. It's part of what makes the magic work here in the morning, all right? I do a lot of coffee. My next guest, though, he's got me beat. Mike McFall is the co-CEO of Biggby Coffee and author of the book Grind. Nice work there. It's a no BS approach to take your business from concept to cash flow. Mike McFall, welcome back to the program. Good to have you, my friend.
Thank you, Steve. Love being here.
Always a pleasure having you. I mean, you took coffee, you took your love of coffee to a different level, which I appreciate and respect. But the reason you're here, the grind, and I want to take a little different conversation here today, because you wrote this book, Grind, and it's about figuring out whatever your interest might be, and it doesn't have to be your passion. It has to be a place where there's opportunity, right? You don't have to love it. You have to have an ability to find opportunity and turn that into profit, is my take on it. And you have this book. It's a self-assessment of whether or not you've got what it takes to be a business person, right?
Yeah, it's called Grind. Originally, I wanted to make the title of the book "Sell More Blank," right? And the idea there was the publisher backed me down from that, said that wouldn't work. But the strongest premise of the book, frankly, is that if you aren't comfortable with sales, if you're not a natural salesperson, I believe you're going to struggle as an entrepreneur. And that is the strongest premise of the entire book. And you know, there's a guy by the name of Amir Bide. I think he's at the Tufts School now. Was at Harvard when he wrote a book called The Economics of New Business. And he studied the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in America. And in that study, he studied it over 20 years. 85% of the founders on that list consider themselves the primary or only salesperson in the business at start. And to me,
there's truth to that, because I don't like selling, particularly in my business. But we have found, myself and Ivy, we have found that most often we're the best salespeople for our product, right? Which is basically ourselves and radio and television programs. And so it's true. If you can't sell, you're going to struggle. There's no question. And selling, as you point out in the book, and I want to talk about that for a minute, because in the book you say selling is an act of coercion. And how good are you at selling? Because you do this self-assessment through the book, and I'll tell the folks here in a minute how you can do it online too at Grind Score. But selling, I mean, you've got to convince people, and I know a couple of guys, I swear, they really could sell ice to Eskimos or whatever. They could sell anything. They're just, it comes to them naturally. The rest of us, many of us struggle, though, and you have to train yourself, don't you?
Well, you know, I think the reason why we struggle, and I was the primary salesperson in my business for 15 years at the beginning. And I think the reason we struggle is people tell you no a lot. And when you've started something, when you've created something, it's your baby, right? So when somebody tells you no, they're basically telling you they don't like what you've created, or they don't think you're bringing enough value to them in order to open their pocketbook and pay you for something. So you hear no a ton. And rejection is like the hardest thing in the world, right? Nobody likes rejection. And so that's why I think a lot of us struggle with selling. And, you know, I've always just, and you know, this thing about an act of coercion, I mean, that's the perception, right? And you are convincing somebody to take your product in, buy it, use it, and you're going to bring value to them and so on. But it is this weird act of coercion. You feel like you're accomplishing something when you sell, and that's just the nature of the beast. And if you can't get comfortable with that, if you can't be okay with that, I think being an entrepreneur is going to be a struggle. The best entrepreneurs I know are amazing, are great salespeople.
Now it's funny you said in the beginning, I was the main salesman for my company for 15 years. That's a long beginning. I just made note. That's a very long beginning, Mike, just for those first 15 years. And then after that, I handed it off to somebody else. But the truth of the matter is,
that's a whole other conversation we can have on another day, right? Which is people's
certainly. Yeah. Absolutely. But I'll say this, for the folks that are not familiar with Biggby Coffee, you're spreading across the country. You have how many stores now, roughly?
Well, we opened 4 last Tuesday, which is the most we've ever opened on a given day, and that took us to a clean 300. So we now have 300 units open, which is fun, right? It's a little milestone that we crossed. And but the
300 stores, yeah. So the point being is, whether you want to have 300 coffee shops or you just want to run a store or you want to do whatever it is you do in business, whatever it is, you do have to have an ability to talk to people and relate, because really at the end of the day, you're selling yourself, no matter what the business, aren't you? So you got to just have that relationship. And I can tell you this, Mike, and it's probably true for you. Some of those early sales, it is the best feeling in the world. Then you make a sale and you go, well, that was a life-changing sale, and you know it. You know that the whole formula just changed because you just took a step forward, and that feels so good.
It's the best. And people who thrive on that feeling, people that thrive on that, to me, that's the entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So for people that, don't have that drive or that don't think they can do it, they can learn. I mean, I know a lot of people that couldn't. I mean, I wasn't a great salesman, I don't think. I don't know that I'm a great salesman now, but I'm effective enough, and I've created enough relationships that I can move forward. So I think people can move and evolve into becoming good and even sometimes great salespeople, can't they?
Absolutely. And, I talk about in my class that I teach all the time that sales really, 85–90% of sales is just creating a mechanism that you operate, ideate, and improve. And then your job is to feed the top of that mechanism, feed the top of that funnel, and then let the mechanism work it through. And so, it's not, to me, sales isn't about, having a silver tongue or being handsome or, whatever works for you. But but the thing is, it's about a system, it's about a mechanism, and you have to build that, right? I write about that in my book. It's one of the primary premises of the book.
Yeah, and I recommend to anybody, I've got a copy of the book that sits right here on my desk, actually, Grind. And the reason is I refer to it sometimes because you have these assessments in there. As I said, you can also go online and take this interactive test. If you're thinking about creating a business or you're in a business now and you think, well, maybe I can do better, maybe I can learn something, there's no better time to get into business than today, because it won't be any better tomorrow or the day after that. If you're going to do it, by God, just go do it. And put it on the line and make it happen. Tell the folks about the interactive test and the book and everything they can find and where to find it online.
Yeah, so it's thegrindscore.com. It's 24 questions. You fill it out. I do ask you to give me your email to get your detailed assessment of your answers. And so I go through each question, and based on your answer, you'll get a specific response from me in terms of what I think you might need to consider based on your answer to that question. And then there's like a 1 or 2 minute video that explains my rationale behind each question. But it's not about, whether you can be or can't be an entrepreneur. What it's about is to get you thinking about some things that might be either might be your strengths or weaknesses in relation to starting a business. And it's just about a conversation starter and getting thinking about how you're going to impact your business.
Thegrindscore.com. Mike McFall, congratulations. 300 stores. Who'd have thought? Right? 300 stores, who'd have thought? Congratulations. Biggby Coffee. You can look that up as well. It is great fun. It's interactive. It's interesting. I've done it. I scored reasonably well. Thank you, Mike. We'll talk to you soon. Greatly appreciate it. We're going to take a break here on the Steve Gruber Show and be right back.